Tuesday, the 3rd of October 2017. In the spirit of reconciliation, before we begin this meeting, I acknowledge the peoples of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of the land on which Wyndham is being built, and we pay our respects to their elders past and present. Please stand for the opening prayer. We pray for guidance in the Council's decision making to achieve the best outcome for the people of Wyndham. Please be seated. I'd like to welcome members of the gallery, press, councillors and staff here tonight for the ordinary council meeting. Some of you may have seen the notices in the foyer, but for those who didn't, I would like to make you aware of the following. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the internet. The recording will be archived and made available on Council's website. Whilst all care has been taken to ensure that your privacy is maintained, please be aware that your presence may be recorded. Madam Mayor, apologies and requests for leave.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We do in fact have one apology from Councillor Heather Marcus, and you'll also note that Councillor Intaj Khan is not in attendance tonight as per the Council resolution of the last meeting of Council where he's required to take a leave of absence for a period of 4 weeks, Mr Mayor. And also Councillor Walter Villan-Gonzalo is an apology for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Just so that everybody is aware that we do have a report later on tonight on Assembly of Councillors. However, there has been some questions asked about the Assembly of Councillors report, which includes specific details which are required to be included in this report under the Local Government Act 1989, including those councillors who are present or absent from these meetings. I'd like to make it clear that during the time that Councillor Khan is suspended from his duties, he will be noted as being on leave of absence for Assembly of Councillors, ordinary council meetings and other council meetings. Leave of absence covers a number of reasons why councillors may not attend such meetings, such as when they are not available for council business, for personal reasons, and in this instance, it is also the term used under the Local Government Act to prescribe and describe that Councillor Khan is not attending meetings due to his suspension from duties. Councillors, does anyone have any conflicts of interest that they may wish to flag in relation to tonight's agenda? Okay. Oh, by the way, councillors, I do need a mover for the apologies and requests for leave. Councillor Maynard and Councillor McElhaney. Councillors, are there any questions? If not, I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Thank you. Councillors, confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting, which is item 4. Do we have a mover? Councillor Maynard again. Seconder, Councillor Hooper. Councillors, is there any questions or comments on the confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting? If there aren't any, I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Next on the agenda, item 5. Let's go. Next on the agenda is item 5, which is deputations and presentations. Acknowledgement of the Emergency Ready Community Project, which was received at the Resilient Awards on Tuesday, the 26th of September. And I'll just make a small comment and then I'll pass over to Councillor McElhaney. I'm pleased to advise that Wyndham and Melton City Councils have received a joint award for the Emergency Ready Communities Project at the recent Resilient Australia Awards. I will now ask the Deputy Mayor and Safer Communities Portfolio Chair, Councillor Kim McElhaney, to provide the background to this award and to present the trophy to Council. Thank you, Councillor McElhaney.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As you've said, this is an important award and it was made as part of the Resilient Australia Awards 2017 under the government category. The Resilient Australian Awards is in the 18th year and is a national program run by the Commonwealth Attorney General's Department. The award recognises and promotes initiatives that strengthen community disaster resilience across Australia. The categories in the 2017 Victorian Awards included community, business, government, schools and photography. 33 applications were submitted across the categories by community groups, businesses, agencies and other organisations. The government category received 15 applications from agencies based in Victoria. The Emergency Ready Communities project commenced in 2015 and aimed to educate community leaders about disaster resilience through participation in an Emergency Ready Communities Forum held in September 2015. As part of the forum, members participated in a workshop to access the resilience capacity of their communities using the Torrens Resilience Institute Community Disaster Resilience Scorecard. This was a valuable exercise in community engagement and resilience. The emergency management teams from Wyndham and Melton councils facilitated the forum, which contributed the evidence to a paper authored by Wyndham and Melton staff titled Developing Emergency Ready Communities, a tale of two Victorian councils. The paper was published in the Australian Journal of Emergency Management in 2016 and attracted attention from Emergency Management Victoria, the Commonwealth Attorney General's Department, Resilient Melbourne, Australian Institute for Disaster Resilience, Resilient Melbourne, Flinders University and Macquarie University. The Emergency Readies project is now running for a National Government Award, which will be presented in Canberra in December 2017. I'm very pleased to present this trophy to Council, which is an important acknowledgement of the work we are doing in this area of community resilience. I'd also like to make a special acknowledgement to Ben Lester, Manager of Resilience Cities and the staff of Wyndham Council, and Andrew Mason, and both Mayor Sophie Ramsey and myself were quite honoured to receive this on behalf of both cities. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Well, thank you, Councillor McElhaney, and I agree that the award is an important acknowledgement of Council's work as part of the community safety portfolio, and it's wonderful to maybe have you maybe go to Canberra at the end of the year and maybe pick up the national award like we recently won the Innovation Award. So I'll join you at the front. Just to let everybody know that the Melton City Council, who are joint award winners with us, this award won't be with us for very long because it's got to go to them for their council meeting coming up in a week's time. So we'll enjoy it while we've got it here. And again, it's great to see that council and the council officers and the council are actually working very hard together to make our council a leader in local government in Victoria. Now, Madam CEO, petitions 6.1. You prior to the petition actually noted in the agenda, I believe that there is another petition that was received by governance last Thursday. So if you'd like to read that out, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We do indeed have another petition. So the purpose of the petition really is to table it tonight. It relates to the introduction of business permit parking in Lynn Manx Court with some other 2-hour parking restrictions for visitors and customers. So that will lay on the table tonight, Mr Mayor, and an officer report will be prepared ahead of next month's council meeting.
Thank you for that. Councillors, item 6.1.1. It's a response to the petition installation of safety features due to speeding cars in Latham Street, Werribee. Do I have a mover? Councillor Gibbons. A seconder? Councillor Gilligan. Councillors, is there any discussion on that item? If not, I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Councillors, the next item is Strategic Report 6.2.1, the Wyndham Library Service Strategy of 2018 to 2040. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shaw, seconder, Councillor Gilligan. Councillors, discussion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to make a few comments. First, I think this is actually an excellent document in relation to planning for our library services. I have heard feedback from time to time from some people in the community that people don't use libraries anymore, and I think this report, and one we'll be talking about a little bit later, certainly demonstrates that that could not be further from the truth. Wyndham Libraries is the largest single municipal library service in Victoria. And it is very heartening to see that in 2016, 2017, more than 1.6 million items were actually borrowed through our library services. So I think that's absolutely impressive. I would just like to thank Councillor Gilligan and the Community Reference Group for all the hard work and contributions that they've made in the development of this strategy. So thank you. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Great, thank you, Councillor Shaw. Any other discussion, councillors? Councillor Gilligan, of course, one of your babies.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I think this, in terms of the documentation, helps sum up where we're going in terms of this strategy and the importance of what 20 years will look like by 2040. I think if you look only 10, 15, 20 years ago and consider the digital disruption that we are currently seeing across the economy, you consider the importance of libraries back then to what they are today, and they are fundamentally different today than what they were back then, and they will be in some respects fundamentally different in 2040 to what they are now. I think this report illustrates a couple of very important things, and as Councillor Shaw pointed out, the importance of the service to our community. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is education in Wyndham. In order to get people good quality jobs, making sure we deliver a stronger economy in the local community, we have to make sure we have the education services and opportunity for a variety of people in this city. And indeed, the library services provide that. And when I say that, it comes right down to the most basic of items. And as Michael Jordan says, that basics leads to excellence. You can certainly consider the CV writing opportunities and the resume opportunities that exist in libraries. And even case in point today, where we see the unfortunate situation of thousands of people losing their jobs in the case of the Toyota plant, and the importance of libraries in helping facilitate more people back into work as one example of a myriad of examples of what our libraries provide. Now, in the most front-facing of libraries, people consider them to be nothing more than a domain of books, and that is absolutely not the case. There are hundreds of services that we provide. There are young kids in there learning coding and IT, some of the most fundamental important pieces of knowledge and education that young people could get, and certainly I'm sure some councillors would agree in the most basic use of IT that these skill sets are going to be necessary for the future. And indeed, as Councillor Shaw has pointed out, some of the statistics are quite extraordinary when you consider the fact that 1 in 3 people in Wyndham are obviously members, and the level of visits as well. The final thing I'll make is on the action plan itself, and we heard overwhelmingly clear that libraries are important in our municipality, and I know that many councillors agree with that. But the other element is making sure that there's sufficient service delivery in this city, particularly in the top quadrant. When I refer to that, I mean Truganina and Williams Landing. Two very important suburbs, two fast-growing suburbs, two suburbs that are under immense pressure and not necessarily have direct access to libraries such as places like Tarneet, Werribee, etc. So this plan certainly outlines one of many things that we're going to take on as action items for the next 4 years as part of the 20-year vision. And I think that that hopefully illustrates confidence in the city that we're going to get on with the job of investing in this space and making sure that we continue with the record investment that we have already made in libraries, but also that education becomes and will continue to be the forefront investment of local government. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gilligan, and very well put together report, I must admit. Councillors, the next item is items. Oh, I better put that motion. Although, if there's any further discussion, Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Normally, Mr. Mayor, I don't read directly from the agenda, but I think the way that the report's written is extremely well written and just needs to be highlighted. And I'll be very short, just in mentioning the fact that there are proposed new library service locations within Wyndham, Black Forest Road North, Werribee Employment Precinct, Riverdale, Oakbank and Tarneep North, and obviously, well not obviously, but the library in the in Werribee CBD will eventually move to the Integrated Learning Community Hub in Common Drive. But also it's important to note that whilst libraries, as Councillor Gillingham has mentioned, and I think Councillor Shaw, books, it's much more than that. It's the digital age, it's all sorts of different things. And Council is most certainly thinking outside the square, because I note in the report, and again reading directly from it, which as I said I normally don't do, that people living in Werribee South and Little River will also have well above average travel distances to access Wyndham libraries, but that we'll be investigating what digital services and other things we can provide to those communities. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Maynard. Any other discussion, councillors? Yep, Councillor Hooper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I just wanted to acknowledge Williams Landing and Truganina as key parts of, in this report, as needing library services. Our community absolutely loves libraries, and there's good reason for that. With events like May the 4th and TarnCon and other facilities that are done through our libraries to actually make that community spirit that we really want to embrace as a community as a whole, it's no wonder that there's actually people in the community desperate for something of that in their township. So it's absolutely good to see, or great to see, that that is not ignored or not forgotten, and that we will be revisiting Williams Landing and Truganina in the near future.
Thank you. Councillor McAlane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd just like to further add to Councillor Hooper, the majority of responses in regard to the strategy came from that area. So I think that needs to be acknowledged. My understanding, nearly 32 responses came from the Williams Landing area, and we've put it on the agenda. Thank you.
That's very good. Yep. And Councillor Arm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, as Councillor Gilligan, Councillor Tony Hooper, and Councillor McClaney just mentioned, so I'm confident, our city will continue to look at those mentioned issues and continue to improve and try to solve this problem in the very near future. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Arn. Obviously, the Harrison Ward councillors are speaking as one about the future library services that are needed in that area. Thank you, Councillor Maynard. Councillors, is there any other discussion? If not, look, I will put the motion this time. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Councillors, 6.3.1, Community Grants and Subsidies Policy Update. Do we have a mover for that motion? Councillor Hooper. Seconder, Councillor Gibbons. Any discussion, councillors? Councillor Hooper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to move this motion and policy update. This policy demonstrates and outlines Council's role in supporting the community via the Community Grants Program. So many organisations are out there that are full of great ideas, people and drive. To make a big difference in our community, they just need a little bit of money to make a big difference. And that's what we're here to provide under this revised policy framework. Community grants extend the community's capacity to conduct activities, create opportunities for community capacity building and build strong partnerships for community benefit, and I strongly support them. As a portfolio holder for arts, culture and heritage, I'm pleased that revisions have been made to provide better support for local artists and art-based projects within existing programs and grants and scholarship streams through the integration of the former Arts Development Fund into the Mainstream Grants program. This will build on the success of current grants promotion and support strategies, which have seen a significant increase in applications for funding of arts development and arts-based projects in the municipality in the past year. This policy will also assist councillors and council staff to achieve consistency in processes and procedures when developing, assessing, monitoring and acquitting and evaluating grants. So I support this motion. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Councillors, any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Now, councillors, before I go to the next item, I would like to acknowledge there are members here from the RAP. If you could all stand up, please. Come on, Brian, don't be bashful. He's never bashful. Thanks, guys. Councillors, the draft reconciliation action plan is here. I would also like to acknowledge my co-chair, because I do co-chair that committee, in Trish Williams. Thank you, Trish. So, councillors, could I have a mover for this recommendation? Councillor Hooper. A seconder? Councillor Maynard. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Hooper.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to move this motion to put the draft reconciliation action plan on public exhibition. I wish to begin by acknowledging the hard work and commitment of the Wyndham Reconciliation Action Advisory Committee members, which have just stood up. Thank you, guys. Chaired by yourself and by the former councillor, Councillor Bob Fairclough. It's clear that a lot of thought and effort and hard work, and I'd say blood, sweat and tears, has been put into the committee, into this program, or into this document. This plan is all about developing relationships with the local Aboriginal community through mutual respect, inclusiveness, equity and cultural awareness. The draft reconciliation action plan includes themes like respect, relationships and opportunities. It is a significant step towards reconciliation by this council, as well as providing more opportunities for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander residents to participate socially and economically in the broader Wyndham community. This reconciliation action plan sets out specifically council's commitment to developing relationships with our Indigenous community through mutual respect, inclusive equality and cultural awareness. It looks at everything from how we as an organisation can build on and further develop our already strong relationships and how council can increase the opportunities for Aboriginal people to participate in the community. This is a collaborative plan that takes into account the local cultural, economic and social landscape and looks to find solutions to balance all these aspects and have the best outcomes for the whole community. I support this and encourage all members of our community to have a look at the draft reconciliation action plan and provide feedback. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you for that. Councillors, any other discussion? If not, I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Okay. The next item is 6.4.1, which is WIP 10144/17, the use and development of a community facility on land at 54 to 70 Walhara Rise, Wyndham Vale. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shaw. A seconder? Councillor Maynard. Councillors, any discussion? No, straightforward. Councillors, I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. 6.5.1, Wyndham City Libraries Annual Report 2016-2017. Mover, please. Councillor Gilligan. Well, you've probably had a hard day in the office. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Shaw. Very good. Okay. Councillors, any discussion on the library's annual report? Yes, Councillor Gilligan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And very briefly, as I touched on in the earlier report, I think we should highlight that we're seeing record investment by Wyndham City Council. It's part of its investment in a series of services in the municipality is obviously going into our libraries. And when you take into context some of the sheer numbers that are involved in our libraries, you really start to take a bit of an awe experience about what we're talking about when we say we're investing in libraries. Whether it's over 1 million visits to library branches across the city to even 150,000 visitors on the library website. You've got bookings that go into the hundreds of thousands, whether it be for our computers, to the use of our rooms, you name it. These facilities are being absolutely utilised and utilised to the brim. And indeed, that's important to illustrate in these annual reports that are presented to Council to ensure that we deliver a very strong and powerful message, not just to local government, but also to the Victorian and federal governments about the importance of our libraries in our community. So when we talk about making sure that we have a greater service delivery in places like Truganina and Williams Landing, what we're saying is we can only do half the job unless the state government walks with us and provides us the necessary investment, particularly in the asset or the development of the library as well. So it is important in the context of looking at these annual reports that these are great examples of investment in a rate capping environment being delivered to the optimum capacity that we can deliver, but it's not going to be quite enough unless we get the Victorian investment that we so desperately need in this space, as is the case in infrastructure more broadly, but most certainly when it comes to the development of these future libraries that were outlined in the 2040 report that was only just passed a couple of minutes ago. So I thought I would highlight those important stats and put a bit of context to this report. Thank you. Oh, and finally, sorry, I should thank Rhonda Rathjen and the staff, of course. We should also illustrate that and point out once again that when it comes to customer service, we are absolutely above average across the state. I know Rhonda does a great job. I've said this many times. I sent her a text message recently about she's doing a good job. So keep it up. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gilligan. Councillors, any other comments? Councillor Hooper.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm going to be a little bit cheeky and quote Michael Jackson for a second. His song Thriller, there's a line in it that says, "You make it." And I have to say the staff of the Wyndham Libraries, Rhonda Rathjen and her team, had to get that in there, mate. I was trying to subtly work it in. But no, look, the library staff, the commitment and love that they put into the libraries and the people that attend, it's just absolutely awesome to see. When you see the reading of to kids and the vibrancy and life that they have. Now, when I was growing up as a kid, I remember going into libraries and the first thing that you heard when you walked through the door was shh. But you don't get that from Rhonda and her team. They want noise, they want life, they want vibrancy, and it's absolutely staggering. Like, I'm absolutely blown away still when I go into a library and I see the noise or hear the noise and see the life that's in there. It's just not what I normally associate with a library, but our libraries, they're a community. And I really do think Thriller's line, "You make it," really does describe exactly where they are. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
That's a great tie-in, isn't it?
Saving from before.
I suppose if we talk about the freeway to Melbourne, you'd quote AC/DC, "Highway to Hell."
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Councillors, any other discussion items on this motion? Well, with that, having that's all. No, we've got double doors. Okay. Having said that, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. The next item is the Wyndham State of Environment Report. Councillors, do we have a mover? Councillor Maynard. And a seconder? Councillor Gilligan. I think just beat you, Councillor Hooper.
That throw line, wasn't it?
Photo finish. Photo finish. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I must mention before I speak that what I'm reading out is from the portfolio holder, Councillor Marcus. And I'm speaking on her behalf tonight, seeing she's unable to attend. So, Mr Mayor, Wyndham is home to many significant natural features, including our waterways, wetlands, coastal areas and grasslands. Protecting and enhancing these assets as our city continues to grow and expand is vital to our future livability. Part of meeting a balanced approach to growth and development is a consideration of our impact on the environment through both our long-term 2040 targets and day-to-day activities. By distributing this report to the community, Council is demonstrating accountability and transparency regarding delivery on our adopted strategies. This year, the report format has been enhanced to focus on the three key themes of the new strategy, and they are sustainable city, progressing towards a sustainable city, valuing nature, conserving and improving natural values, rural areas and the urban environment, and council leadership, which is guiding council's functions and governance. I'm pleased to read that significant progress has been made towards achieving 26 of our 56 targets in this first year of the strategy. A further 6 targets have already been met. However, effort will be required to ensure these targets continue to be achieved in future years. Environmental monitoring and reporting is essential and illustrates to the community where achievements have been made, and in particular the report highlights, pardon me Mr Mayor, extensive recycling and litter reduction campaigns, including a Victorian first in the launch of our popular reverse vending machines, and importantly our curbside recycling contamination levels have decreased significantly. Expansion of the increasingly popular land protection grant scheme, which assists our dryland farming community with land management and weed reduction programs, and continuing with our leading energy efficiency street lighting upgrades with approximately 1,000 arterial street lights fitted with LED technology. We commenced our large-scale solar program of over 40 of our buildings, which will result in 2 megawatts of renewable energy installed, one of the largest installations by local government in Australia, I should say, and continued our extensive large-scale tree planting and conservation reserve improvement programs. Also expanded Green Living Series community events, attracting more than 1,000 attendees at our workshops, and successfully advocating for increased Werribee River environmental flows. In summary, Mr Mayor, the 2016-17 State of Environment report demonstrates Council's commitment to protecting and enhancing Wyndham's natural environment and managing its carbon footprint in the context of being a growing city. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
No. Thank you, Councillor Maynard. Councillors, any other discussion? Councillor Gilligan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll make a couple of comments in relation to this report. The first one, I think, is an exciting one around the tree canopy investment that we are making. I had a bit of a laugh reading an article in the Courier in relation to the Ballarat City Council, where a resident who had paid his rates for 30 years stated that he has never seen a tree planted at the front of his property, and that where the trees are planted throughout the city of Ballarat, they are planted in such a hodgepodge way that there is no element of continuity in developing a great urban environment. And I think that's what sets us apart in terms of the investment that we are making in relation to the environment, especially considering the huge changes we're seeing in relation to tree canopy. So that's the first point I'd want to make. Once again, leading the way when it comes to the environment, and then of course considering that particular council, perhaps they should take some particular focus on what we're doing here in Wyndham. The second point I want to make is in relation to the annual greenhouse gas emissions that have actually reduced. And it's gone down by 8%, or indeed 2,069 tonnes in 16-17. And I remember as a young high school student fighting for solar panel funding from the Victorian government in my high school back in country Victoria. And knowing that that is such a huge reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, that's something that we should be incredibly proud of. And indeed, when you consider the fact that this council is seeking to further reduce that as part of a 2020 target, and good on them. The final thing I want to make is, and I was reflecting on this in this report, is considering the huge bravery of the former federal member, the Prime Minister of this country, who made a decision to introduce carbon pricing. Now, this is something that is seen as not necessarily attractive to some, but when it comes to young people in this city, overwhelmingly, there is a view that we need to get on with the job of making sure that we deliver carbon pricing throughout the markets and indeed in everything that we do. Now, this is not necessarily within the purview of local government, but it's an overwhelming consensus of young people at Gen Y, Gen Z, Gen Alpha that believe that it's time to get on the job and make sure we deliver. Now, we're doing that in local government overwhelmingly in the reduction of our carbon emissions, and I hope that the federal government considers their responsibility on behalf of all citizens in delivering their investment in reducing carbon emissions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gilligan. Councillors, any other debate? If not, I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. The next item is 6.5.3, Wyndham Domestic Animal Management Plan 2017 to 2021. Mover, Councillor Maynard, and a seconder, Councillor Hooper. Councillors, any debate? Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Gesundheit. Again, Mr. Mayor, just speaking on behalf of Councillor Marcus, a portfolio holder, and I just wanted to, as she is pretty passionate about this DAM plan, as we call it, the Domestic Animal Management Plan, hereinafter called the DAM plan. So, Mr. Mayor, the Domestic Animal Management Plan 2017-21 is a statutory requirement of the state government, and after a 5-week consultation period is ready for approval. We have had 891 responses to the survey and an overwhelming commitment from the community for the actions identified in the plan. This is significantly more than 120 responses received back in 2013. And Mr. Mayor, just a little bit of ad-libbing, I certainly applaud council staff and officers for the forward thinking in, I believe, sending out text messages to facilitate this response. Fantastic. Our efforts to engage all registered animal owners via text message has been acknowledged by our colleagues from other municipalities as an innovative way of engaging local animal owners. And Mr. Mayor, shall I say again, Wyndham's the best. Forget the rest. The level of response is testament to the commitment many domestic animal owners have to responsible pet ownership and our efforts to holding animal owners accountable for a safer Wyndham when it comes to domestic animals being a nuisance in our community. The draft plan has been acknowledged by the RSPCA as a robust plan. Essentially, the 4 key items identified that they are keen for councils to adopt in their next 2017-21. It says DAM plan, but I'll say Domestic Animal Management Plan. I won't say DAM plan again. That we have already covered off on in our previous plan from 2013, I should say, and reaffirmed in the plan before you. And they are Section 84Y agreements authorising local vets to act as agents of council in registering animals reunification, reuniting pets with their owners in the field, and communicating the benefits of animal registration, and importantly enough as well, Mr. Mayor, increasing pet registration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maynard. Councillors, any other discussion? Yes, Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make a sort of a comment more generally, and it's not necessarily directly related to this policy, but I think this council does fantastic work with our policy work. The one Councillor Maynard just spoke about, the libraries one, we've been talking about some others as part of some of our briefing, and I think really we are leading the way in some of the work that we do around our policies and setting strategic directions for this community. It's really pleasing to see, and I think tonight has been a really great example of that. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillors, any other debate? If there isn't any further debate, then we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. The next item is 6.5.4, building in Wyndham. Do we have a mover? Councillor Hooper. Seconder? Councillor Maynard. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Hooper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very pleased to move this motion, and in particular our continued push for a fair and accountable building approval system, another leading the way moment. Around 4,000 new dwellings will be constructed in Wyndham in this financial year alone. 4,000. By volume builders, boutique builders and owner builders. As a growth area, Wyndham is a premier destination for first home buyers. The council has a role to play in overseeing the proper observance of building construction to safeguard the health and amenity of our residents. Numerous incidences involving fatalities or injuries have occurred over the years in Victoria, and we all know just recently, due to the inadequate condition or safety of buildings. Council receives a lot of inquiries from the public in response to building permits issued by private building surveyors. These queries can range from non-compliant construction, siting of buildings, and structural defects. I'm a firm believer that the building system in Victoria needs ongoing strengthening so all residents are treated fairly and have confidence in the building industry and their own home. I endorse this motion and our ongoing advocacy to the state government on this very important issue. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. Councillors, any other debate? If there isn't, I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Item 6.5.5, MAV contract trucks, NPN 04-13, and specialised trucks and bodies, NPN 1.15. I'm sure people who have got a great interest in trucks understand what those trucks are. But, is there a mover? Councillor Maynard. A seconder? Councillor Gibbons. Councillors, any discussion on this item? Councillor Maynard.
Just short and sweet, Mr. Mayor. Whilst we are, I suppose, going down the path of the MAV recommendation, it's great to note that you know, local suppliers are part of that panel. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comment, councillors? If there's no further discussion, then I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Item 6.5.6 is the listing of the 2018 council meeting dates. Do we have a mover? Councillor McElhaney and a seconder, Councillor Gibbons. Okay. Councillors, any discussion? Straightforward? Okay. I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Item 6.5.7, Assembly of Councillors. Councillors, do we have a mover? Councillor Hooper, seconder. Councillor Arn. Councillors, any discussion? No discussion? Okay, I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. There are no notices of motion according to my records here. And under the item 8, Council Seal, we have 8.1, which is awarding of a contract C1868-17 at call hard and green waste collection services. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shaw, seconder. Councillor Gibbons. Councillors, any discussion? If there isn't any, I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Item 8.2, awarding of contract C1903/17, the reconstruction of Boardwalk Boulevard and Dunning Trade Point Cook. Mover, Councillor Hooper. A seconder, Councillor Arm. Councillors, discussion. Councillor Hooper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move this motion to award this contract at a cost of $3.169 million for the reconstruction of Boardwalk Boulevard and Dunnings Road in Point Cook. The Council invests significant resources each year to ensure the quality and standard of local road infrastructure is maintained and meets community expectations. These two main roads are critical to the Point Cook road network. This project will provide new pedestrian signals for improved safety as well as improvements to image, accessibility and presentation of the area. It is great as a council to maintain roads for Point Cook families to enable them to move around safer and get home sooner to their loved ones, assuming they can survive that highway to hell. I look forward to the completion just in time for Christmas and the new year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper.
I had to work that in, you know.
I've got a couple of more one-liners, but I'll keep them to myself. Councillors, any other discussion on this item?
Sorry, point of clarification.
It's GST exclusive.
Sorry, my point of clarification was whether or not GST was inclusive in that figure as opposed to page 135. The figures are different.
So we're fine with the recommendation or the motion was?
Yes, yes, so just the amount, that's all, sorry.
Not a problem. Apart from that point of clarification, is there any other comment, discussion? No? I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Item 9 is nil. Item 10, questions with notice from the public gallery. Madam CEO, are there any?
No, Mr Mayor, we don't have any public question times this evening.
Well,
Questions?
There's a first for everything, isn't there? I shall move on then to item 11, councillor delegates reports. Councillors, on 11.1 we have the council delegates reports. Do we have a mover? Councillor Maynard. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Shaw. Councillors, any discussion? Remembering, of course, that if you would like to speak to the reports, councillors, you can do that. Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just highlighting the report and in more specifically the Lead West delegation to Canberra, which you partook of. I was unable to go, and I think the report is self-explanatory, but certainly a great deal of work and effort put in by a number of councils, and especially yourself and our CEO, Kelly Grigsby, whilst in Canberra. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Maynard, as the delegate to Lead West. Councillors, any other discussion? If there's none, I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Item 12 is urgent business. Madam CEO.
Mr Mayor, no items of urgent business this evening.
Thank you. Item 13 is confidential business. I'd like to call for a mover of that, Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, the motion is that pursuant to section 89(2) of the Local Government Act 1989, standing orders be suspended and this meeting of council be closed to members of the public in order for council to discuss confidential business.
Councillors, do we have a seconder? Councillor Hooper. Councillors, any discussion? If none, I shall put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. I would like to ask the public to leave the room and return when the doors are opened. This is the confidential part of the meeting that only members of the council can stay. Thank you, everyone. That includes
That's democracy.
King.
Who needs to vote?
Tony.
Sorry, I had put my hand up.
Carried.
Naked.
I shall call for another motion. Thank you, Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, the motion is that the recommendations of the closed meeting of council with regard to confidential matters be adopted.
Seconder, Councillor Gibbons. Any discussion, councillors? If not, I shall put the motion. All carried. Councillors, I declare this meeting closed at 7:49 p.m.
Home for Survivor.
Yes, 8:30.